Welcome to the Magnificast, a podcast about Christianity and leftist politics. I'm Dean Detloff. I'm a PhD student at the Institute for Christian Studies. I'm a journalist, I'm a barista, and I sell comic books.
Matt, I teach media studies at Greenville University in Greenville, Illinois. I research media archaeology, cultural theory. Right now, working on this really neat thing. I'm co-writing with Dean, so spoiler alert, on the role of radio in revolutions. So reading a lot about radio in Cuba right now. It's dope.
It is
really
dope.
excited about it. I want to talk about it actually a lot, but maybe some other time.
I agree. Surprise, Fidel was extremely into the internet. That's very cool. Not radio related, but just a neat tidbit for you.
And like Shay was the first podcaster, so there you go.
That's right. He was the first podcaster.
It's like kind of a joke, but kind of real. I don't know.
No, it's true. It's very true. Except like I don't know that many podcasters who are setting up their little snowball microphones in the middle of like guerrilla war zones or jungles.
Yeah, not many at all.
Not yet.
Not yet. Someone out there might.
Cool. Well, this will be used against us later on. That's fine. Moving on to this episode. What are we doing today? It's a new year, Matt. This is the second episode of this new year.
Yeah, second episode of the new year. New year, new left. That's what I always say. Studies show 5 out of 5 doctors say that by this time, by January 16th. Oh, crap, that dates the episode. Oh, well. Most people have given up on their New Year's resolutions, but you'll all be happy to know that we have not given up on our New Year's resolution. We have 2. It's a really short list. We have 3. First, go to the gym more. Second, usurp Joel Osteen from the iTunes charts. And then third, but not like this isn't in like an order of importance, but third, do socialism. So we can at least check off the third one, I think, in this episode. So
we'll
get excited for that. Yeah. So it is 2018. In case you've forgotten or you're still writing 2017 and stuff, stop doing that. Just get the right year.
Get your head together.
Get your head in the game. Donald Trump has been president for a whole year, and that has been a wild ride, to say the very least. So throughout that year, people have been becoming more disgruntled, more convicted that things are wrong. I think there's a lot to say about that we can kind of get to later. And 2017 was the year of the so-called religious left, or that's what the think pieces wanted us to think. And also, 2018 is also the year of the religious left, according to a lot of think pieces and so on. So if last year was the year of the religious left, and maybe this year is too, maybe let's just take a second and figure out what it is the religious left is and does and is supposed to look like. It is a thing for sure. So in this episode, we're going to take some time and think through, what this term means and the way it's used in the contemporary discourse. Think about some of the historical aspects and probably summarize some of the stuff we've talked about in the past. And then finally, we want to introduce all of you nice and wonderful listeners to something that our friends in the Christians for Socialism collective have put together and published in the last few days. So after we do all 3 of those things, we can check off that last do socialism off of the New Year's resolution list.
Get back to the gym after that.
Yeah, we'll go to the gym.
Cool. So I have a Google Alerts set up for every time someone mentions the religious left or the Christian left.
I'm sorry for your inbox.
It's not pretty. The best part is when you set up Google Alerts for the Christian left, you also learn about all kinds of stories where people have the last name of Christian and are pictured left. So that's really great. Those are good notifications.
It's like a 12-year-old's blog post about Christian who was pictured on the left side of the photograph.
That's right. surprising amount of troubling murders and exciting sports games. Those are the two that seem to rise to the top.
That's sad and funny.
That's pretty great. But one thing I've kind of noticed is that coverage on the religious left seems to kind of amount to finding a mirror for the religious right. So I guess to put it in the most basic terms, this is like covering over a wide swath of history and everything else, but the religious right is this big hegemonic force of conservative Christianity trying to legislate its way to, I don't know, some dumb idea of what America should be. And so people are like, wow, that's a really powerful force. It even got Donald Trump elected. Where's the religious left? And by that, they mean some counter-hegemonic group that would continually vote for Democrats. So the short of it is that most of these takes boil down a religious left to a sort of two-party problem. There's a religious right, which sides with the Republicans, so naturally there should be, in their view, a religious left that is a reliable Democratic voting bloc. And if you listen to this podcast for more than an episode, you might discover that we're not really down with that, per se. So, I don't know, Matt, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
they are actually bad. You got it. You got it right. A+ gold star.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that's funny. It's just like I think it speaks to the general impoverishment of the political thinking in the United States that what left means is Democrats, when what actually left means is socialists, anarchists, communists, and stuff. So it's a problem of imagination and also a problem of vocabulary. Yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds of these different articles out there that talk about what the religious left is and where it's coming from and how we need it so bad. But there are some artifacts of it for sure, like the Poor People's Campaign, or like Jesus Radicals or whatever, right? There are like actually Christian left things. But it doesn't seem like those are the things that folks are looking for when we talk about the religious left. One of the perhaps most interesting, academically interesting, not like interesting in the good way, articles is a really kind of like funny blog post from thinkprogress.org titled "Nobody is Laughing at the Religious Left in 2017." And after reading this article, I'm not exactly sure why. It doesn't seem like the religious left really amounts to a whole lot of anything. So Dean, we took some time before we started recording to talk about this and kind of pick out some good pieces of it. What stood out to you from this article?
Yeah, so I think this article is really great because it helps to, I think, collect a whole sort of vision of what basic sort of democratic liberals think about what the religious left ought to be, or where the limits of that imagination kind of takes you. So there's a host of examples that this particular author brings out to kind of show what they think is the religious left kind of emerging as this force in 2017 to challenge Donald Trump, to be, there's at one point it talks about the resistance, #resistance as a spiritual movement. But I think the one thing that really, I guess, got me going was this one line, or a few lines, where it says, as an example of the religious left, faith groups hosted day-long rallies and pray-ins with Democratic lawmakers such as Senator Cory Booker, who is now often associated with the religious left, on Capitol Hill to decry a bill that was being passed, and multiple clergy leaders were arrested in Washington, D.C. while protesting. I think what frustrates me about reading lines like that is Cory Booker is not a part of the religious left in a meaningful sense. Pray-ins and day-long rallies are not, I guess, strong leftist indicators. I mean, they're not bad things. Like, people should have rallies. There's nothing wrong with praying and using prayer as a form of protest. It's a powerful symbolic gesture, and I don't mean to discount that, but when we're talking about what the religious left might mean in a meaningful sense, I think it's really important to actually disassociate that from the Democratic Party especially. And the minute somebody says a particular Democratic politician, especially someone like Cory Booker, is associated with the religious left. I guess I am the one laughing at the religious left now in 2018.
Yeah, no, I get it though. Like, okay, like day-long rallies, pray-ins, protests, those are all cool. But like, how left could they possibly be if Cory Booker could like get involved? Like, I mean, Cory Booker's fine, like whatever. Like, I don't know, but he's like not a leftist.
Yeah.
Do those protests, are they like anti-capitalist? Are they fighting for the rights of workers? Are they trying to protect like the dignity of the homeless? I don't know. Like, what do those things do? Like, just because religious people are protesting something doesn't mean like anything. It doesn't tell us about the content of those things, I guess.
Yeah.
That is what bugs me.
Right.
So this is maybe a roundabout way of getting at this point, but I think it's worth making. So one of the people I like to talk about the most is not a Christian, and his name is Jean Baudrillard. He's a French postmodern philosopher, and a lot of people love to hate him, and I just love him. He's like so cool. I don't know. There's a lot of things I like about him. One of like the more controversial things he wrote was this essay called "The Gulf War Did Not Take Place." And it's a really dope essay. Go check it out. I'm sure you can find it on the internet somewhere. And people got really upset because, like, well, actually, the Gulf War did take place, if you didn't know. But the point of the essay is that, like, yeah, it did take place, but just not the way that you think that it did. The kind of crux of the essay is that, like, what we think of as the Gulf War or the Gulf War taking place is like the media representation of the Gulf War taking place, and like that skews what it is like that war was and looks like and feels like, you know, completely. Anyways, I think I'd like to make a similar critique of maybe the religious left, and I want to do it through this article. So one of the headings in this article, in the Think Progress article, is the heading is "The religious left isn't what the media thinks it is," which is okay. Like, it's trying to make a point that like the media thinks the religious left is one thing and it's not. It's kind of like a critical point. And then the immediate sentence that follows that critique of a header is "The religious left was virtually unavoidable by June when an above-the-fold feature story on the movement graced the cover of New York Times Sunday edition." Okay, so it's this really funny juxtaposition of the religious left isn't what the media thinks it is, and then the next sentence is "The religious left was unavoidable in the media." Right. Like, so, like, yes, it actually was. I guess like this whole long story is just to say that like the religious left looks a lot more like a bunch of think pieces getting published somewhere than it did like people in the streets or people engaging in like educational programming or something like that. The religious left was a lot of people posturing about the religious left and not a lot of doing. Or at maybe least that's overly critical. Maybe like, you know, people did stuff, but
yeah,
just not all the stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I think maybe we could say something like the religious left, it's true. It's not what the media thinks that it is, but the media keeps thinking that it knows what the religious left is.
That's
and
right.
This is a perfect example of that. So the idea is you kind of pick out a variety of things that happened, and you decide that those things fit within the category of the religious left. All the while ignoring all kinds of other really radical things that happened that year. For example, nowhere in this article does it talk about the sabotaging of oil pipelines done by the two members from the Catholic Worker in Iowa. That is a religious left thing to do, to destroy private property in the interest of saving the environment and protesting a breach of indigenous sovereignty, etc. Like, that's a religious left thing to do. But that's not the kind of thing that shows up in an article like this.
Yeah. It's interesting how those kinds of things get left out, right? The things that I think are actually meaningful for the political imagination of activists that are religious and on the left, those get kind of pushed to the side. Instead, we get pray-ins and Cory Booker. I think that pray-ins would be way cooler if people did them at work. And
I agree.
And prayed instead of working. I don't know.
Yeah,
that could be pretty rad.
Prayer strikes are a thing that should happen.
Yeah, I like a lot. Yeah. price strikes are things that should happen.
It actually reminds me, this is sort of a side point, but Reverend Billy Talon, we're both fans of this particular guy. If you don't know Reverend Billy Talon, boy, do you have some fun YouTube ahead of you.
There's a documentary called Church of Stop Shopping. Go watch it. Just after this podcast is over, go watch it. It's so good.
Yeah, it is so good. So Reverend Billy Talon is an activist, artist. I don't know, you could probably classify him in a number of ways, but he adopts this persona of a sort of Southern revivalist preacher, like a televangelist, essentially. And he performs these like exorcisms of the demons of Wall Street, or he'll pray for, revivals in the middle of like I don't know, cops arresting people at a protest or something. Like, that's the kind of praying I can get down with. This kind of playful appropriation of Christian imagery and themes in that kind of a way. That's a good religious left, even though I don't think Billy Talon is actually a Christian.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he actually is. It's never really clear.
Which is good.
I don't know.
That's a cool thing.
Yeah, make it ambiguous. I'm down.
Yeah.
He can come to my church. I don't care. All joking aside, there is something cool that does come out in this article. They do mention the Poor People's Campaign, which is actually legit. So that's something to think about.
That's right.
I mean, like, the religious left is a lot of things, and I think the Poor People's Campaign should be at the center of it, or at least should be a really huge part of it. It's like something that actually analyzes and understands class as a really important factor for religious people. So
yeah, and
go.
links it
There's
up to other struggles like racism and militarism, the triple evils that Martin Luther King Jr. identified that motivated the Poor People's Campaign. So, very cool thing. I think, though, one reason that this article is useful in the way that it kind of summarizes a particular view, I guess, is that it does help to articulate, I guess, the differences of kind of liberal left Christianity and a Christian left that's rooted in what is maybe more traditionally recognized as leftist discourses like Marxism, anarchism, socialism. I think it's really useful to kind of see the way that religious folks are reined in and sometimes excluded, even within popular leftist discourse, like media leftist discourse, because it's not actually, that kind of discourse isn't actually willing to sort of understand and promote and engage real kind of leftist discourse outside the media. So the one thing this article gets right is that the religious left isn't what the media thinks that it is.
Yeah, that's right. Where are some other places we see the religious left coming out, Dean?
Yeah, so the religious left is still out there, still doing stuff. I mentioned the Catholic worker in Iowa. There are also a number of Catholic workers around. We've gotten some emails from very good-natured Catholic worker folks for some shade that we've thrown at like Dorothy Day occasionally on this podcast, and I just want to affirm that Catholic worker folks are actually extremely cool. In my experience, anyway, they're very cool and often on the ground doing really important, good work. In some cases getting arrested for sabotaging oil pipelines. So that's a good example of the Christian left. We mentioned the Poor People's Campaign. You mentioned earlier Jesus Radicals. If folks don't know what that is, they're a collective of Christian,
get at it.
Yeah, for sure. Christian anarchists. They also have a podcast. I don't know how often they update it, but there's a really good catalog of interviews that they have on their website. So dig that, check that out.
I used to read Jesus Radicals all the time. It was like a huge thing for me back in my good old anarchist days, I suppose.
Yeah, me too.
There's lots of really informative articles, and I'm not such a fan of it now because sometimes some of the articles have kind of an anarcho-primitivist kind of bent to them. Not all of them, but just some. Yeah,
they're good though. They're good educational folks and doing good work. So they're out there still doing things. That's a cool thing. I think also, I don't know, there's all kinds of like micro religious left organizations that are left over in my experience. Like there is a group called Pax Christi, which is a Catholic nonviolence initiative that has chapters throughout the world, but there's one in Toronto, and there's all kinds of really engaged, especially older Catholics who are kind of leftovers from like liberation theology, that they show up at stuff, and that's really amazing to see. there's a lot of, I guess, little groups like that kind of hang on.
Yeah, like the Methodist Federation for Social Action is another one that is still around and has been around forever, worth thinking about. There was a time when they were a lot more radical than they are now, but I don't know, still cool. Check them out. Give them a Google.
Yeah, or like the student Christian movement. That's still a thing. It was a big important thing in the 60s, and at least in Toronto, it still exists, and they organize radical Bible studies, and they do a lot of cool work. So it's not like the religious left has disappeared. It's just like those little micro narratives don't make the big stories in the news, which is too bad.
Yeah, the religious left has never disappeared, but like the media wants it to be something as spectacular as the religious right, and in doing so, strangely made the decision to like annex all of the actual authentic Christian left sources.
That's right. I like how you put that. They want it to be as spectacular as the Christian right. That's good. Because that's also what the Democrats want, right? Is to be sort of as spectacular as the Republicans in a certain way. It's just that they want to do it premised on this kind of vague moral conservatism.
I suppose it's also not like just by chance that they sort of neglect to mention all of those sources that they do. I mean, like, if they did, they'd have to give time to people who have more radical politics, and Think Progress or whoever isn't going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know, there are other people that are actually writing good Christian left pieces. Like, I don't know, they've all been on the show. Matt Sitman, Daniel Camacho, etc. People do good work still, and they don't get grouped in with the giant, spectacular religious left think pieces, and that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. I think also one phenomenon that we're seeing in the last year is that the Christian left is amorphous. Like, it's still kind of emerging. The thing that comes to mind for me is the Charlottesville event in particular, when all these clergy folks showed up to protest white supremacists. That's a really amazing thing. I think there were so many Christians who felt this was clearly wrong. They felt the need to say something, to be present, and to make that heard in a bodily way. And that's really cool. But I would imagine most of those folks probably aren't organized into sustainably leftist collectives or something like that. So, yeah, it's nascent in that way.
Yeah, totally. I just think back to that video that Cornel West, like the interview that Cornel West did, like right after Charlottesville. He's just like, we showed up, and like a good thing, like the anti-fascist folks were there to protect us.
Yeah,
because like
that's right.
Like if they had been organized, like that would have been something they would have thought of way before that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there are like definitely good and active religious left folks in the world. But they're not organized, I guess, under like a heading or like under a front or anything like that. They, I think this analysis demonstrates that, like, yeah, like religious people care totally, and they're interested, and they feel convicted, but they are not organized.
Right.
So the religious left, someone should write a think piece about organization, because maybe that's the next step. No amount of think pieces on any liberal-leaning news-ish sources are going to get people organized. That just isn't going to happen.
Right. Speaking of that, also things that are not going to get people organized are like tweets and blog posts and I'm going to kick myself for saying this later, but also like manifestos that are posted on the internet and sort of stopped there. And I am referring to a thing that came out in 2016, the Tradinista manifesto. I don't want to dunk on it too hard, because I spent a lot of time dunking on it on the internet too much already. And also, like, I don't hate everybody that's involved with it by any means. But I do think that it is not a great political program. It's not one that I would sign up to, but it takes itself to be a religious left, and it intentionally says it wants to organize Christians to be, an organized force in the world. So it's like they've also recognized that there are a lot of folks who are morally repulsed by what's happening in the world, and they need to be, they need to find a space to organize with each other and with themselves. But the program is not desirable, at least in my opinion. It doesn't link up to actual leftist movements or sensibilities in any significant way.
Yeah, as a Protestant, I find it just extremely confusing. Like, the impulse is clearly good to me. Like, I think that the Tradinista manifesto comes out of a similar identification of a problem that, like, okay, there are sources of religious left, but they aren't organized under anything. It's confusing because it's just like, it tries to mash up leftist political thought with, like, Catholic social teaching. And I think that works a lot of times, but sometimes it just gets extremely strange and alienating. And I can't read, like, I mean, I'm a Protestant, so I guess they probably don't care about me. Or they would just be like, submit to the Pope, etc. But I read it and I'm just like, I have no idea why these things are important to anybody. They're kind of weird.
Yeah, I think the strange thing reading it, I mean, I am a Catholic, and in some ways I understand some of the impulses. Like, I mean, sure, it's good to find points of contact within your own religious tradition, and specifically for Catholics, it's important to find points of contact within the Catholic tradition, which is long and broad and full of all kinds of important people in it. But I think that what is particularly strange about this document is it's hard for me to understand how it would ever materially manifest into a real actual movement on the ground in the world. It's sort of it's a good example of how Catholic social teaching actually has a really hard time like meeting real people in like 2018. For example, the manifesto goes out of its way to talk about how they don't like racism, they don't like misogyny, and they don't like homophobia, and they don't like transphobia. They name those as forms of oppression, but they also don't think that people should be like. They don't think gay people should get married. I mean, they don't think that women should be priests. They don't think that trans people are expressing some kind of authentic truth about themselves or whatever, or exploring their own identities for themselves. And I think it's crazy to imagine that that kind of vision would really be greeted as any sort of ally among an actual legitimate leftist movement today.
Yeah, it is. It's so hard to believe for me. It's just so hard to take it so seriously because it's like capitalism is bad, and like here's a completely alienating piety that people should take up, and it's just like, I don't think so. Like, I don't know. Again, I'm not Catholic. I probably have perhaps like I have an extremely un-Catholic understanding of marriage or something, but like in the manifesto they explicitly talk about like the importance of like not divorcing. And it's like, I think that divorce is probably sometimes good, right? Like, okay, so maybe that's because of like liberalism poisoning my mind or whatever. And there's also lots of other like kind of uncomfortable sexual politics going on in here that feel extremely repressed to me. And like, again, that's probably because of like liberalism poisoning my mind or whatever. But it's just like, do you expect people to like really get behind this in any strong way? I don't. For me personally, no. And it just seems like a really futile exercise in what could have been something very cool. Also, some other things probably we could say about it too. Like, sorry, Dean, you spent too much time dunking on it, but I guess I haven't. In the about, it says, in our task, we are influenced by Aristotle, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, Karl Marx, and the Catholic Social Magisterium, among others. Like, okay, but like any women, any people of color? I don't know. Like, it just seems so like this is like socialism, but like dressed in some kind of like weird, really constricting shirt made of horsehair or something.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And it feels, after reading it, like the manifesto is already kind of dead in the water. Like, I can't, as far as I know, I don't know, I can't think of anyone who has organized on this as a platform or as a a real vision that makes material demands in the world such that you would go out and try to realize it or get other people on board. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but if someone brought it to me, I wouldn't sign up, I guess, which is fine. It's okay to be not that target audience, I suppose, but I don't know. It's just a good example of like people who also recognize there's a problem, and in terms of where religious people are trying to express a moral injunction to capitalism, to racism, to all these oppressive structures, and they recognize that problem has to be addressed through organization. But in adopting the language of a religious left, it's hard to kind of also see that as a authentically leftist movement.
I mean, it's just like self-defeating. I mean, can you really be authentically left and also like be anti-feminist? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good open question for Tradinistas. It's not like they haven't thought of it, but they've never, in my experience, given a satisfactory answer to that, apart from repent and submit to the Pope. So I don't know.
Yeah,
so that's not a good political program.
It's not a good political program, I guess, or maybe I guess I can just, like maybe the most charitably I can just say it doesn't convict me. It doesn't convict me. Most charitably, most uncharitably, these people are not my comrades. Like I don't know because if you like actively exclude such like people on such dumb bases, I don't know what to do about it other than just be like, I'm not down.
May God have mercy on your Twitter account after this episode airs. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Like, I'm a Protestant. I don't even care. Like, like, what are you going to do to me? Like, I won't go to your church. Like, fine. Listen, I'll just, like, hang out at Protestant churches and sing Chris Tomlin songs until Jesus comes back and, like, the rapture happens and, like, whatever. I mean, Catholicism is... behind. Yeah, exactly. Catholicism is very good, but, like, these are just things that, like, are not going to convict people.
Yeah.
And not me.
It's also...
I think
it's also, like, not... It's not the sum total of Catholic organizing or Catholic thought about Marxism or the left either, and it would be a mistake to assume that it was.
Right. Yeah.
Not that that's what they're saying, but if you did think that, well, you're wrong. Yes. All right, so let's transition to what was good about the religious left in the past, what worked and what was successful. So we've talked about a bunch of examples of that on this podcast in the past, and we'll continue to do so. But I think one especially exciting one that sticks with us and is stuck with a lot of our listeners is Christians for Socialism. We'll talk more about the new manifesto later, but let's kind of just take a minute to sit with like the history of it and tradition of it. So a quick review, if you've never listened to the other episodes we've done on CFS, it started in Chile under the Allende government. A bunch of Christians wanted to figure out how to participate in socialism there, and then it slowly kind of spread its wings to other parts of the world, including the U.S. in the 70s and 80s. So yeah, we'll take a minute to just chat about that. Matt, is there anything about Christians for Socialism in the United States, in particular in the 70s and 80s, that you thought was really cool, responding to some of these similar problems of trying to organize religious people into real leftist coalitions?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to say about what was cool about it, because it's all cool. I think, okay, so first we can say, like, I guess what I like about it is that Christians for Socialism was definitely a way that Christians in the United States were sort of, like, listening to what else was happening in the world, first of all. Like, there was already, like, a Christian left in the United States that was organizing under a different name called American Christians Towards Socialism, ACTS. Get it?
That.
Yeah. That was, like, sort of, like, the first name. But once this group, at least, heard more about what was happening in Chile, they really responded in an interesting way. People from ACTS were visiting Chile and kind of like seeing what was going on there, and people from Chile were coming to the United States for, reasons. A coup. A coup is the reason. And out of that sort of like experience, ACTS transformed into Christians for Socialism, which was the name that the movement took on in Chile. I guess that's significant to me because it's just a way, it's just like, it demonstrates just a little bit that like the religious left, the Christian left, I guess specifically in this case, in the United States during like the 70s and 80s, like was seeking that sort of like international connection, and that stands out to me. That is significant. That being said, like there was a material presence of all these people, of the Christian left around the United States. To name a few, there were chapters in Chicago, in D.C., in Iowa, in Madison, Wisconsin, in Northern California, in Pasadena, in Detroit, in Cincinnati, in New York. Like all of these places had like people actually meeting somewhere who were Christians and who were leftists, and not just like leftists in the think progress peace sense, but leftists in the actual socialist sense of the word, like the left that seems meaningful. So they had chapters, they had an organizational system, they had publications, so many publications. I have a big box of them, and we'll keep trying to share them because they're so cool. Anyways, they were involved in like doing actual work, in meeting with each other. So like, for example, in Chicago, the chapters had like sort of like open forums with the public. They had educational events to relate, the good news to people of socialism and Christianity. They had theological education events. They were trying to kind of like promote their brand, get their name out there. In DC, they had subgroups that were like studying and supporting international struggles. They did international solidarity work. Iowa is my favorite story, probably because it's the closest to me, but also because it's just amazing. In Iowa,
also got that Methodist brand.
Yeah, that's right. So in Iowa, there is a contingent, more than one, a group of Methodist pastors who were like committed to socialism, and they had a newsletter. They made a book called The Radical Preacher's Sermon Book. It's really neat and awesome. They supported strikes. They materially, that was awesome. One of the Methodist pastors is called Gil Dawes, and Gil Dawes is so awesome that he invited Angela Davis to come speak at his church, and she did.
She was, I think, the vice presidential candidate of the Communist Party at that point as well.
Yeah, that's right. So Angela Davis, vice presidential candidate for the Communist Party in Iowa in a Methodist church. You can go and Google it and kind of read how that went. It probably about what you expect, but awesome nonetheless. There's the chapter in Madison. They helped with a cooperative newspaper that was started by striking newspaper workers. So they were part of the ideological apparatus there. Northern California, notable because there was like sort of a struggle to defeat anti-gay employment ballot initiatives. So like they were kind of involved in LGBTQ issues a long time ago. That's neat.
Before the Northern cool.
Yeah, before it was cool. The Northern California chapter has a lot of interesting stuff going on too. They were connected to another group called Radical Religion. They published like an academic journal, and it's rad. In Detroit, they were integrated into local struggles, definitely trying to reach out to people who were not necessarily religious in the institutional sense. Cincinnati's also another one of those like pretty wild sort of Midwest examples where they were actively supporting the United Mine Workers strike. And New York is really cool too, because they were really involved in the Latin American exile community. So all those people who were leaving Chile, some of them went to New York. And also notable too, in New York, they organized student workers at Union Theological Seminary. So all you Union dudes out there you go.
And gals, dudes and dudettes.
Sorry, I meant dudes in sort of like the the broad sense, but that's probably not great. I probably shouldn't do that. Anyways, all of these stories is sort of exhaustive list. It's not exhaustive. We could have talked about more because there are more. But all of these just kind of like glimpses into different chapters are interesting because it demonstrates like this is what a Christian left did, and this is what a Christian left could do again. Like become involved in material struggles of like relatively simple things like a newsletter, strike support, inviting Angela Davis to talk at your church. Do that one first. But like, they're nothing like, it's nothing spectacular. Like none of them are like, go into the mountains and arm yourselves. They're all just like, things that materially contribute to a culture that appreciates the left and like, is open to that type of critique and thought. So these are all cool because they're small but important things that people did. And dang, I want to do them again.
That's an extremely good segue. Not usually our brand, having good segues.
Sorry.
But it's good to be off brand right now. To talk about the Christians for Socialism manifesto that we said we were going to talk about earlier. So it came out just recently. Technically, it came out today, the day we're recording this. So who knows what will have transpired in the next couple of days. But there have been a lot of interesting reactions to it already, and Matt and I were working with a bunch of other friends to put this together over time, who we won't name I mean, if they want to say what they did, that's fine, but like some people aren't in a position to make that public, so that's cool.
But they know who they are.
they know who they are. It could be you didn't even know. But so Matt, maybe we could just talk a little bit about that. I mean, you just gave a lot of really good examples of extremely tangible and cool things that Christians for Socialism did a few decades ago. One thing that I think is the most compelling is that local chapters of CFS determined for themselves kind of what issues they thought were really important, what they could contribute to. So, for example, we've talked to a few people who were involved in it in other places. And in Detroit, for example, they worked a lot on issues of housing. That was like a big thing for them in particular, especially as Detroit kind of lost its industrial place in the world. They worked on like rent controls, and they worked on trying to like help people, I guess, transition through the slow collapse of Detroit. But those aren't the same kinds of problems that might have been as significant in, I don't know, Northern California or something. So I think that is really cool. Like local chapters figured out what they got to do, and then they reported back to kind of the organization in such a way that it sort of emerged over time. And I guess thinking through what Christians for Socialism might be these days, that's what I'm most excited to do. Just get in a room full of other people in Toronto, talk to them about what they think is going on in the city and how Christians can help. Like, that sounds so exciting to me.
Yeah, it's extremely exciting. I, myself, as a person who is incredibly socially anxious, am afraid to say anything to anyone ever. But in this case, I'm extremely excited to talk to people about socialism and Christianity. So if you're playing the Magnificast home game, and we know you are, and you want to follow along with this conversation, go to christiansforsocialism.org. That's right, it's an org. And check out the manifesto page and see what it is that we all got up to. So it's a really dope manifesto, and all of the people involved put a lot of work and effort into it, and I'm incredibly thankful to those people, because otherwise, I mean, it's just not as good as anything we could have ever written by ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's also important maybe to say up front that like we worked hard to kind of get some energy around this project, but it's not like a Criticism for Socialism isn't like a Magnificast thing, or like we're not like the mouthpiece of that movement or whatever. So I guess as we talk about it now and as we talk about it in the future, this is like our take on it as people who are participating in it, but certainly not any kind of like official statement or something. And I think one thing that's also important to note is the Christians for Socialism episodes that we did are like the most listened to episodes that we've done in the past. And we got all kinds of people who were sending us emails basically being like, hey, that's all really amazing. Why doesn't this exist anymore? How could it exist? Are you guys doing it again? Are other people doing it again? How can I start one of these? And basically, I guess Matt and I were talking and just got to this point where we were like, yeah, we've got this podcast. Maybe we should actually like try to organize people as Christians in the left instead of just talking about Christians in the left. So yeah, I don't know, Matt. Was there anything that happened in kind of the writing of the manifesto that you thought was really exciting, or anything about it in its final form that you think is really cool and worth maybe highlighting?
Yeah. So I think right after we did make those episodes, people were like, yeah, you guys should do this, and like I think it's important to say, like, us guys didn't do it. Like a lot of people did it.
Yeah, exactly.
So like we recruited. I mean, like I guess the important work that we did was like reach out to people who know more stuff than we do. So we recruited people that we like know would be on board and interested, and they all gave us input in their own ways. I think just like connecting with people who might have just been Twitter friends or might just be acquaintances or who are extremely close friends on a project like this is just really cool because it shows that people are like interested and you get to work on something with people, and that's very nice. So that was a very fun part of it and a very cool part of it. I think just seeing the comments that everyone left on the piece and seeing like the kind of contributions that they made was fun. Just seeing it kind of take shape and take kind of a personality bigger than any one person was amazing.
Yeah, that's right. It's also funny the kinds of things that like you write a sentence in a certain way, and there are all kinds of unthought assumptions that you make when you write that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to kind of have people who helpfully help you. It's cool that people help you figure out what those assumptions are and maybe try to find better ways of saying it, other ways of saying it, saying something else altogether. I feel like I learned a ton just doing it. I mean, I think the document does suffer from having been ultimately written by a ton of people. It can be a little jumbled, but ultimately, I think I don't know. Manifestos are long, so it's a good starting point anyway. I'm glad. I feel sort of proud to organize around it, and that's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's the first manifesto and assuredly not the last.
That's right.
I mean, it's the thing about manifestos. You got to keep writing them.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple sections, I guess, for folks that are interested that maybe we worked like especially hard on, were the Smashing Mammon section number 3 and the Liberating Theology section number 4. Those were really important. I mean, all of it was easy, not easy. I mean, all of it was important to write, but some sections came easier than others. Like, in some cases, we were just rehearsing the history of what happened. That's not very hard to do. But when you're trying to articulate the state of capitalism today, or trying to articulate an intersectional vision of what a Christian left might look like, you have to work really hard to kind of parse all that out. So, yeah, I don't know. Those two sections, I guess, took the most work, and also I think are some of the most important content in the piece altogether.
Yeah, hopefully when you all inevitably read it, you don't find it incredibly alienating, like maybe I felt about the Tradinista manifesto. If you do, I don't know, sorry. We did our best, but I think it's good. I guess what I like about this manifesto is that it has a few just like baseline assumptions about like what Christians should be doing and like what Christian socialists should be doing and what Christians for socialism should be doing. And to me, it just always like the language that kind of keeps popping up again and again is just, it's all about liberation in one way or another. Liberating one another from like sort of oppressive structures. A line that did make it in that I appreciate so much is about liberating the rich from wealth. I think that's very good. I stand by it. And I guess like these sort of assumptions that we make in this manifesto should point us at least in a direction, right? Like there are plenty of critiques to be made. I'm positive, and people have already done it. We'll get to just the best ones in a minute. But I think what's important is maybe not the rhetoric of this or the theology of it, even though those things are important, but what's most important is like the material struggles that this type of manifesto can point us towards. The sort of building a mutual trust between the religious and the left again, promoting that brand of socialism in churches again, and then like supporting strikers, supporting the dignity of people who are homeless, thinking internationally in terms of colonialism and decolonialism. So trying to find ways that we can invest ourselves in these struggles and the struggle for liberation. I guess that's the direction I think it points us in, and the direction that I hope others find that it points us in as well.
Yeah, I agree. And we should say too, like I was just mentioning the strength of the past iteration of the movement was that it was determined by local chapters. Uh, as it stands, we've been kind of brainstorming about how to help people set up local chapters and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from getting a bunch of people together tomorrow and like thinking about what this would look like in your own community, or what issues might be on the table for you, and what you might like to see, I guess, in terms of being a Christian for socialism yourself. So I think I'm just excited to see where the manifesto goes and where the movement goes and what kind of feedback trickles back, and move from there. That's the most exciting thing to me. I feel like the horizon is very, very bright, glittering with possibilities, and that's a cool feeling to have.
Yeah, I think since this is like basically our only soapbox to get up on in the world, it's important to stress that like this is not intellectual property, of which we are extremely protective of. Like, I don't know, if you find this manifesto in any way motivating, I guess just get at it, and see what happens.
Yeah, do what you gotta do. So we did want to take some time at the very end to rehearse some of the best criticisms of this document, which are found, unsurprisingly, on reddit.com/r/Christianity, the hotbed of the most responsible Christian thinking on the internet.
Man, I can only imagine how many hours I've poured into this subreddit specifically.
Yeah, it's funny to see where this got posted. I don't use Reddit anymore, but I did search, and I found it on Christianity, Radical Christianity, and then I think you were telling me you found it on Socialism, Art Socialism. So yeah. I don't know, it's getting out there. But dang, the Christianity...
all of the front pages of the internet, for sure.
That's right. The Christianity subreddit is a real gem.
Yeah, so all of you who are unfamiliar, Reddit is kind of like a big message board. People post, it's like a news aggregate site that you can also post sort of like other topics to. If you've never used Reddit before, I wouldn't suggest going out and making an account. It's not very good. In fact,
if you do use it, I would suggest deleting your account.
Yeah, I'd go as far as to say as it's actually bad. So again, if you're not a part of that community, the radical or the Christianity subreddit is always just so contentious, of people ready to rip off one another's heads over just the dumbest stuff. And like, I get it that a manifesto called, about a group called Christians for Socialism is for sure something that's going to rile people up. But lucky for us and lucky for all of you, it did it in the most just funny way possible. So one user comments. Sorry, I'm just going to have a hard time getting through this. So in the manifesto, we make many allusions to the Magnificat because, like, it's awesome. So, like, why wouldn't you? Anyways, one user comments, well, let's not even call this a comment. Let's call this a meditation on the manifesto. Sending the rich away, that's all I need to hear from this. Apparently, access to Christ, grace, the communion with the body of Christ is dictated by how much money you make. So you better not make much. One user who I'm actually particularly fond of comments back in good faith with just like some Bible verses that should probably let this first commenter know that like the sending the rich away part is from the Bible. And then another commenter who I'm also fond of says, "You're gonna have to tell that to Mary too." And then the first commenter, who is incredulous towards the idea of sending the rich away, comments back, "What? I'm a Baptist. Why should I tell Mary anything?"
Off the hook.
Yeah, that's right. If you're a Baptist, you can ignore any part of the Bible where Mary speaks. It's just you can do it. It's in the bylaws of the Constitution of Baptists.
The Baptist bishop said.
That's right. The Baptist hierarchy says. The Baptist magisterium.
This is great coming on the heels of talking with John.
Yeah, no kidding. Who is actually a good Baptist.
Yeah.
Baptists are all right. I don't mind them. at all. Uh, so anyways, this person just cannot believe, or like is just not getting in on the joke that like that's in the Bible. And I like it so much. I like it so much. This person cannot understand that. That's so funny. People are very silly, and there you go. Haters gonna hate. That's all there's to it.
There's a lot of great comments in here about deciding whether or not Norway is socialist, deciding whether or not Venezuela is socialist. It's just full of every take you could possibly imagine. So I don't know. It's actually probably a good cross section of like how bad Christians are at thinking about socialism and how important it is to have a movement like Christians for Socialism.
Yeah. Anyone out there doing sort of like a digital ethnography on Christians' response to socialism, this is a goldmine for you.
That's right. You could pitch this as a postdoc for sure.
I'm positive that is actually true. Someone needs to put this community under a microscope and just study it, because it is unique to say the least.
That is the kind of slide you just throw right in the garbage after you're done putting it on that microscope.
Here's another good one. Okay. One user comments, socialism has failed every time it was tried. How's things going in Venezuela? How about North Korea? So, that comment, unsurprising. I'm sure that you've read that on Facebook 1,000 times.
If you're playing bingo at home, you can scratch that one off.
That's right. Again, another user who I'm very fond of. This is kind of a user that I'm fond of is like the 2018 version saying the disciple that Jesus loved. Says, many times socialism has been attempted. There has been imperial-backed opposition. Why are socialists always seen as a threat to Western Europe if it's just a failing state? And then the first user comments back, the adversary, we'll call them. I don't see socialism as a threat. I see it as a loser. And then there's another back and forth in which the disciple that Jesus loved says, then why did the U.S. go to war in Vietnam? Why did the U.S. go to war in Korea? Why did the CIA back a coup against a socialist leader in Chile? And so on and so on. And then the adversary says, to free the slaves, of course. Boom!
Got him. Nailed it.
Got him. Roast him. That's it. Socialism over, guys. It's
right.
all done. Pack it in.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Actually, after reading this, I've decided to delete the manifesto off the internet. Despite all the hard work done by everyone, this is just unassailable, and it's over.
One commenter also posted that the status of North Korea currently has nothing to do with the West. Except it does completely. There's no North Korea. I mean, it wouldn't be a North Korea unless there was, wars. that the United States were part of. This is insane. What kind of weird world is this?
This is the same guy who didn't know that sending the rich away empty is in the Bible. So
yeah,
literally in the first chapter of the Gospel of Luke. So
yeah, so just real wild time to be alive. Anyways, study these weird folks over here on the internet, because it's just too much. It's just too much to really.
It's way too much.
Oof.
The nice thing about Christians for Socialism is that with any luck, it won't be reducible to internet comments for or against, but hopefully will become a useful tool for Christian leftists who are trying to figure out what to do in their own communities. Like Matt was saying earlier, we have all these resources, and we've been trying to track down copyrights and things like that before we kind of release them out into the wild. But when we do, we're going to try to make those resources widely available. We're going to try to hopefully come up with some more newer resources that would be useful. But I think most importantly, it will be awesome to find out how this actually looks in certain places. So if you live in Toronto, I'm hoping to put together something in the beginning of February. There's already 6 or 7 people in a Toronto Facebook group for this whole thing, so it's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. If you live anywhere and you're interested in doing this, just ask a friend, ask your church mates, congregants, church mates. Church mates is probably the right word. Ask your church mates. Just hang out, have a conversation, take some baby steps. I don't know. It doesn't have to be anything huge, but nothing to it but to do it. In the words
That's right.
of Hey Arnold's best character, Gerald.
Hey Arnold's best character, Gerald.
Only 90s kids
2018.
will get that joke.
Really, really doing it. I think that is actually probably another thing maybe to tack on at the end here is that we're trying like hard to distance ourselves from being so presumptuous as to think that like writing a manifesto is really that huge of a deal. Like, it's a lot of work, but it's not that huge of a deal. The huge deal is getting out and getting a group of people together and finding out how you can connect with other leftist struggles and other Christian people in your community. And I mean, so often we get email after email about people asking us like, hey, that's really cool that happened in Nicaragua in the 1960s, but like, what's going on in the Midwest in the United States right now? And it's like, I don't know. So if you are feeling that way, I mean, be the change you want to see in the world. I don't know who said that, Gandhi or something.
Gandhi, and then also Michael Jackson.
Yeah, right. Okay, so pick your favorite quote sayer and do what they tell you.
Thanks for listening to Magnificast. If you like what you heard here, and I can't imagine you wouldn't, you should follow us on Twitter, follow our pages on Facebook, join the Magnificast basement and have a conversation with us. You can also follow Christians for Socialism on Twitter and on Facebook. I suggest you should do that. Go check out the manifesto again at christiansforsocialism.org. Do all those things. If you really, really like us, or even if you don't and you want to give us money, you can support us on Patreon. Recently, thanks to all of our wonderful and good Patreon folks, we reached our goal and we can, pay for stuff. So this year we got to do a lot of cool things that were funded completely by listeners, like buttons and shirts, which are still coming and they're on the way. They're not here yet, but they will be soon. So anyways, you can contribute to that good stuff as well.
We should take a minute to actually say maybe what that money goes to, because I don't know, nobody's ever asked us, but presumably some people would care. I think so. Like, doing a podcast is both easier and harder than you might think. It's easy.
It's medium.
It's as easy.
It's medium difficulty.
Exactly, it is medium difficulty. It's as easy as buying a microphone and putting it in your computer and then talking into it and poorly editing it and putting it on the internet. It's that easy. But the things that we kind of were hoping to do was finding ways to support different movements that we think were important, finding ways to spread the good news of socialism and Christianity, and also find ways to support us taking our own time to do this. So in the last year, we donated to a couple of campaigns that were raising money. For example, like after Charlottesville, there were some bills that needed to be paid from people who got hurt or people who had legal troubles. So we've contributed to those campaigns. We paid Benjamin Wildflower, the artist who designed the incredibly cool woodcut image that will appear on our shirts. And he's having them printed up in India, where he knows folks who do that sustainably and ethically. He has a relationship with them, so that's money that we thought was important to spend. We paid Amaria Armstrong to make our introduction because she does incredibly cool music and deserves money for it. So yeah, I guess the short of it is like, we're not just like holding up all this money in a like a bank account somewhere. We're paying for that stuff. We're paying for domain names. We're trying to fund starting up other things like Christians for Socialism. So yeah, I don't know if that's important, but felt like something that maybe we should make public.
I think that's good. Yeah, like that money, like we do things with it that are cool, so it's worth it.
So thank you.
Quick shout out to I guess as usual, Rev Left Radio is awesome. Listen to them if you don't. It's so good, such good stuff. They constantly have good episodes, and Brett is very cool, so listen to Rev Left. Also, I don't know if you guys follow Tyler Hill on Twitter, but you should. And also, he has a really great podcast called Gods and Ghosts. This week, he released an episode about the Battle of Blair Mountain, and it is a really important piece of the history of labor in the United States, but it's often overlooked. So get out there and listen to those good podcasts, those good podcast friends of ours. So one final note, just kind of to close the show out, to all of our detractors. And this is a quote from The Adversary from Reddit. This is really important. It's like you live in some goddamn la-la land. We have no basis for reality between the two of us. We won't come to an agreement. You're only wrong. You are deliberately ignorant of facts and history. We are done here. Good day, sir. I said good day! All right. See you next time on the Magnificast.
I don't wanna get up for church in the morning, souls alive. Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored. Don't worry, someday there'll be no dam between us and our Lord.